In the flickering lamplight of tomb KV35, 3 mummies lay side by side in a chamber meant for eternity, but only one would hold the key to rewriting the bloodline of Egypt's most famous pharaoh. The year was 1898, when French archaeologist Victor Loret descended into the darkness of the Valley of the Kings and discovered a tomb that had served as a hiding place for royal mummies, relocated there by ancient priests to protect them from tomb robbers. Among the cache of displaced royalty, 3 bodies lay in a small side chamber: an elderly woman, a young boy, and a younger woman whose face bore the evidence of terrible violence. For over a century, she would be known simply as the Younger Lady, a nameless figure in the shadows of history. Then, in 2010, DNA analysis revealed a truth that sent shockwaves through Egyptology. This brutalized mummy was the mother of Tutankhamun. The revelation transformed an anonymous corpse into one of the most important royal women of ancient Egypt. Yet paradoxically, establishing her biological significance only deepened the mystery of her identity. Who was this woman who gave birth to the boy king? Why was her body so severely damaged? And could she be the legendary Queen Nefertiti herself, whose fate has puzzled historians for millennia? Tomb KV35, originally built for Pharaoh Amenhotep II, had been repurposed during the 21st dynasty as a cache for royal mummies threatened by tomb robbers. When Loret entered the side chamber, designated as Room C, he found 3 mummies unceremoniously placed on the floor, stripped of their wrappings and lacking any identification. The Younger Lady, catalogued as Mummy KV35YL, immediately stood out due to her grievous injuries. The left side of her face had been crushed, with the jawbone broken and displaced. A large wound gaped in her chest. Her right arm was bent across her body, while her left arm was missing below the elbow. Initial examinations dated her death to approximately 1330 BCE, during the tumultuous late 18th dynasty. For decades, Egyptologists speculated about her identity based solely on her physical appearance and the context of her burial. The positioning of her right arm suggested royal status queens and princesses were often mummified with one arm across the chest. Her age at death, estimated between 25 and 35 years, placed her within the turbulent Amarna period, when Pharaoh Akhenaten revolutionized Egyptian religion, and his successor, Tutankhamun, restored the old ways. In 2010, a team led by Dr. Zahi Hawass, then Secretary General of Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities, published the results of extensive DNA testing on royal mummies from the late 18th dynasty. The study, conducted over 2 years, employed multiple independent laboratories to ensure accuracy. The results were extraordinary. The Younger Lady was confirmed to be the daughter of Pharaoh Amenhotep III and Queen Taye, making her the sister of the revolutionary Pharaoh Akhenaten. More significantly, she was identified as the mother of Tutankhamun, with the boy king's father confirmed as Akhenaten himself. This meant Tutankhamun was the product of a brother-sister union, a practice not uncommon in royal Egyptian families seeking to maintain pure bloodlines. The genetic evidence was compelling. Microsatellite analysis showed perfect parent-child relationships between the Younger Lady and Tutankhamun across multiple genetic markers. The statistical probability of these relationships occurring by chance was less than 1 in a billion. Science had spoken, but it had also created new puzzles. With the Younger Lady established as Akhenaten's sister and Tutankhamun's mother, historians faced a challenge. Which of Akhenaten's sisters was she? Historical records from the Amarna period are fragmentary, deliberately destroyed by later pharaohs who viewed Akhenaten as a heretic. Several candidates emerged from the surviving evidence. The most sensational possibility was that the Younger Lady was actually Nefertiti. Some scholars proposed that Nefertiti, famous as Akhenaten's great royal wife, might have actually been his sister, adopted into another noble family to obscure the incestuous relationship. This theory would explain Nefertiti's exceptional status and the couple's close partnership in religious revolution. However, this theory faces significant obstacles. Contemporary inscriptions clearly identify Nefertiti's parents as non-royal, and her titles never include king's daughter or king's sister, designations carefully maintained in Egyptian royal protocol. The artistic representations of Nefertiti also show facial features inconsistent with the younger lady's skull structure. More plausible candidates include Nebeta, Bekhetaten, or another unnamed sister of Akhenaten. Royal women often disappeared from records upon marriage or death, making definitive identification challenging. The destruction of Amarna period records compounds this difficulty, leaving gaps where crucial information once existed. Perhaps the most disturbing aspect of the younger lady is the extensive damage to her body. The crushing blow to her face, delivered with enough force to shatter bone, appears to have been perimortem occurring around the time of death. The chest wound, which some researchers believe was made by an axe or similar weapon, penetrated deep into the thoracic cavity. Several theories attempt to explain this violence. One possibility is that she was murdered during the chaotic succession following Akhenaten's death. As the mother of a potential heir, she would have been a political target. The restoration of the old religion under Tutankhamun's successors created an environment where supporters of Akhenaten's revolution faced persecution. Alternatively, the damage might have been inflicted by tomb robbers, either in antiquity or during the mummy's relocation to KV-35. However, the specific nature of the injuries, particularly the facial trauma, suggests deliberate targeting rather than random vandalism. The violence speaks to either the political upheaval of her time or the deliberate desecration of her remains by those who viewed her family as heretical. While the DNA evidence appears conclusive, some scientists have raised concerns about the study's methodology. Ancient DNA is notoriously fragile and prone to contamination. Critics argue that the genetic material could have been compromised by the mummy's handling over millennia, potentially skewing results. Questions also surround the age estimates for the younger lady. Some examinations suggest she died in her late teens or early 20s, which would seem too young to be Tutankhamun's mother, given the historical timeline. Others maintain the original estimate of 25 to 35 years, which fits better with known chronology. These discrepancies highlight the challenges of extracting precise information from ancient remains. The CT scans and radiographic analyses have revealed additional details about the younger lady's life. Evidence of mild scoliosis and indications of chronic sinus infections paint a picture of a woman who, despite royal status, suffered from health issues common in ancient Egypt. These medical details, while not helping identify her specifically, humanize the mysterious figure. Understanding the younger lady requires placing her within the broader context of the Amarna period's radical changes. If she was indeed Akhenaten's sister wife and Tutankhamun's mother, she lived at the epicenter of ancient Egypt's most dramatic religious and political upheaval. The practice of royal incest, while disturbing to modern sensibilities, served specific purposes in ancient Egyptian ideology. The pharaoh was considered divine, and marrying within the royal family maintained divine blood purity. This practice, however, came with genetic consequences. Tutankhamun's numerous health problems, revealed through study of his mummy, likely resulted from generations of inbreeding. The younger lady's story also illuminates the precarious position of royal women during succession crises. As mother to a boy king, she would have wielded considerable influence, but also faced enormous danger from rival factions. Her violent death might represent the elimination of a power broker in the volatile politics following Akhenaten's death. Modern technology continues to offer new avenues for investigating the younger lady's identity. Facial reconstruction techniques have created possible appearances based on her skull structure, though the damage limits accuracy. Chemical analysis of hair and tissue samples might reveal details about her diet, health, and even geographical movements during life. Researchers hope that continued excavations in the Valley of the Kings might uncover inscribed objects or additional mummies that could confirm the younger lady's identity. The discovery of intact DNA from other royal women of the period would allow for comparative analysis, potentially narrowing the list of candidates. Advanced imaging techniques not available during the 2010 study might reveal previously hidden details. Micro-CT scanning could identify subtle pathological changes or trauma patterns. Isotope analysis could indicate where she spent her childhood and adult years, potentially matching historical records of royal women's movements. As morning light creeps across the Valley of the Kings, illuminating tombs that have guarded their secrets for 3 millennia, the younger lady remains an enigma wrapped in linen and time. Science has revealed her biological significance, mother to Egypt's most famous pharaoh, daughter of the magnificent Amenhotep III, sister wife to the heretic king. Yet her name, her story, her individual identity remain frustratingly out of reach. She lies now in the Cairo Museum, her damaged face turned toward eternity, holding answers we cannot quite grasp. In her DNA flows the blood of Egypt's most powerful dynasty. In her broken bones lies evidence of a violent end that speaks to the dangers of ancient royal life. In her anonymity persists one of Egyptology's most tantalizing puzzles. Perhaps future technology will finally put a name to this royal mother. Perhaps an undiscovered inscription will emerge from the sand to identify her conclusively. Or perhaps she will remain forever the younger lady known by her relationships, defined by her genetics, but ultimately maintaining the mystery of her individual identity. In the silence of the museum's climate-controlled chamber, she keeps her secrets still. A reminder that even in our age of DNA analysis and digital reconstruction, the past retains the power to elude our complete understanding. In the pre-dawn darkness of the Giza Plateau, as the first rays of sunlight pierce the desert horizon, they illuminate a structure that has defied explanation for 4,500 years. A monument so precisely engineered that modern attempts to replicate its construction have failed. The Great Pyramid of Khufu stands as the last surviving wonder of the ancient world, a testament to human ambition that transcends time. Rising 481 feet above the sand, originally reaching 146.5 meters before losing its capstone, this artificial mountain contains enough stone to build a wall around France. Yet its true mystery lies not in its size, but in the seemingly impossible precision of its creation. Consider the numbers: 2.3 million limestone and granite blocks, ranging from 2.5 to 80 tons, fitted together with joints so tight that a knife blade cannot slip between them. The pyramid's base covers 13 acres, leveled to within just 2.1 centimeters. Its edges align to the cardinal directions with an accuracy of 3/60th of a degree, a precision that wasn't matched until the modern era. The descending passage points to true north with greater accuracy than the Greenwich Observatory in London, built thousands of years later. In 1837, British explorer Howard Vyse discovered the first concrete evidence of how the pyramid might have been built. Hieroglyphic markings in the relieving chambers above the king's chamber, indicating work gangs with names like Friends of Khufu and Drunkards of Menkor. These chambers, never meant to be seen, contain the only inscriptions found within the entire structure. Excavations around the pyramid complex have revealed more clues. In 1954, archaeologist Kamal El-Malach discovered the solar boat pits, containing a perfectly preserved cedar vessel that may have been used in the pharaoh's funeral rites, or perhaps in transporting building materials. The boat's 1,224 pieces had been carefully dismantled and arranged in the precise order needed for reassembly, suggesting a level of organization that permeated every aspect of the pyramid's construction. The workers' village, discovered southeast of the pyramids, tells its own story. Here lived not slaves, as Hollywood would have us believe, but skilled laborers, approximately 20,000 of them, bakeries capable of producing bread for thousands, breweries fermenting beer, a dietary staple, and organized dormitories paint a picture of a massive, well-fed workforce. Skeletal remains show evidence of medical care, including successfully healed bones and even primitive dentistry. How did these ancient engineers lift millions of tons of stone into the sky? The most widely accepted theories involve ramps, but even here mystery persists. A straight ramp reaching the pyramid's summit would need to stretch over a mile into the desert, requiring more material than the pyramid itself. A spiraling ramp around the pyramid's exterior would leave traces, yet none have been definitively identified. French architect Jean-Pierre Houdin proposed an internal ramp theory in 2007, suggesting a spiraling tunnel within the pyramid's structure itself. Microgravimetry studies have detected anomalies that could support this theory, including a possible spiral structure behind the pyramid's outer casing. Notches visible on the pyramid's corners, spaced at regular intervals, might have served as turning platforms for blocks ascending the internal ramp. The logistics of moving materials to Giza present their own enigmas. The white limestone casing stones, originally 144,000 of them, polished to a mirror finish, came from Tura, across the Nile. In 2013, the discovery of papyrus documents at Wadi al-Jaf provided the first eyewitness account. The diary of Mera, an inspector involved in the pyramid's construction, describes transporting limestone blocks from Tura to Giza using a series of canals and artificial harbors. But the pink granite used in the king's chamber poses greater questions. Quarried in Aswan, 500 miles south, these blocks weigh up to 80 tons. They would have been loaded onto barges during the Nile's annual flood, when the river ran high enough to bring them close to the construction site. Yet how were they unloaded and moved the final distance? How were they lifted to their position 140 feet above ground? Inside the pyramid, the mystery deepens. The Grand Gallery, a magnificent corridor ascending at a 26-degree angle, features corbelled walls rising 28 feet high. Its purpose remains debated. Was it merely a passage? Or did it serve as part of the construction process itself? Some theorists suggest it housed a counterweight system for lifting the granite blocks into the king's chamber. The king's chamber itself defies explanation. Its dimensions encode mathematical relationships, the golden ratio, pi, and the Pythagorean theorem. Above it, 5 relieving chambers distribute the weight of thousands of tons of stone. The precision is staggering. The chamber's walls are flat to within 0.01 inch over their entire surface. The ancient Egyptians possessed copper tools, too soft to cut granite effectively. Yet the granite coffer in the king's chamber shows evidence of being hollowed out with incredible precision. Tool marks suggest the use of tubular drills operating at high-speed technology that officially didn't exist. Some surfaces display striations indicating cutting rates that would challenge modern equipment. Recent experiments have shown that copper tools, when used with sand as an abrasive, can indeed cut granite, but at a painfully slow rate. The time required to shape the pyramid's granite elements using known techniques would extend the construction timeline far beyond the 20-year reign of Khufu recorded in ancient texts. 21st century technology has revealed new mysteries within the ancient stone. In 2017, the Scan Pyramids project used cosmic ray imaging to discover a massive void above the Grand Gallery, a space the size of a commercial airliner, sealed for millennia. Its purpose remains unknown. Does it contain burial goods, construction equipment, or does it serve a structural purpose we don't yet understand? Thermal scanning has revealed temperature anomalies on the pyramid's eastern face, suggesting unknown cavities or passages. Ground-penetrating radar has detected additional anomalies beneath the bedrock. Each discovery raises more questions than it answers. Robot explorations of the pyramid's mysterious shafts have deepened the enigma. In 2002, a robot drilled through a blocking stone in the Queen's chamber shaft, only to find another door behind it. Beyond that second door, in 2011, hieroglyphic symbols were discovered, painted in a space no human was ever meant to enter. Some researchers propose that the ancient Egyptians possessed knowledge or techniques now lost to history. Acoustic properties of the pyramid suggest an understanding of sound resonance. The king's chamber resonates at a frequency that some link to healing or consciousness-altering properties. Were these intentional features or coincidental byproducts? Water erosion marks inside the Grand Gallery have led to theories about hydraulic systems used in construction. Could water power have assisted in lifting blocks? Chemical analysis of the mortar used between blocks reveals a composition that modern science cannot replicate. It's stronger than the stone itself. As our technology advances, the Great Pyramid continues to guard its secrets. Each year brings new discoveries, hidden chambers, detected through cosmic particles, microscopic analysis revealing unexpected materials, computer models proposing revolutionary construction methods. Yet for every question answered, new mysteries emerge. The pyramid stands not merely as a tomb or a monument, but as a challenge across time-ancient minds communicating with future generations through stone and silence. In its chambers and corridors, in the precision of its edges and the mystery of its voids, lies evidence of capabilities we struggle to comprehend. Perhaps the greatest mystery is not how they built it, but why they built it with such extraordinary precision. What drove them to align it so perfectly with the stars, to encode mathematical principles in its dimensions, to create chambers and shafts whose purposes remain enigmatic? As night falls again on the Giza plateau, and the pyramid's shadow stretches across the sand as it has for 4.5 millennia, one truth remains. We stand before a testament to human achievement that continues to humble our modern pride. The answers lie waiting within millions of tons of precisely placed stone, patient, eternal, and still beyond our reach. Between the pores of a creature that has never existed lies a chamber that may hold the answer to one of humanity's oldest questions. Why does a 66-foot-tall limestone guardian stare eternally eastward across the Egyptian sand? The Great Sphinx of Giza presents a paradox carved in stone. With the head of a human and the body of a lion, this monolithic sculpture stretches 240 feet from paw to tail, making it the largest monolithic statue in the ancient world. Yet for all its imposing presence, the Sphinx remains remarkably silent about its true purpose. No inscriptions from the time of its creation explain why it was built. No ancient texts definitively describe its function. After 4,500 years, the riddle of the Sphinx is not merely mythological, it's archaeological. What we know begins with stone and silence. The Sphinx was carved from a single ridge of limestone on the Giza plateau, its builders removing an estimated 100,000 cubic feet of rock to reveal the figure within. The head, carved from harder limestone, has survived millennia of erosion. The body, shaped from softer layers, bears the scars of time and perhaps something more. Archaeological evidence places the Sphinx's construction during Egypt's Old Kingdom, most likely during the reign of Pharaoh Khafre around 2500 BCE. The evidence is circumstantial but compelling. The Sphinx sits within Khafre's pyramid complex, connected by a causeway to his valley temple. The architectural style matches 4th dynasty construction. Fragments of the pharaoh's name have been found on blocks near the Sphinx temple. Yet this dating has been challenged. The inventory stela, discovered at Giza in the 19th century, claims the Sphinx already existed during the time of Khufu, Khafre's father. Though most Egyptologists dismiss this text as a later fabrication, it hints at alternative histories lost to time. Orthodox Egyptology offers several explanations for the Sphinx's purpose, each supported by evidence, none entirely conclusive. The most widely accepted theory positions the Sphinx as a guardian deity, protecting the sacred necropolis of Giza. Its eastward gaze would watch the sun rise each day, symbolically ensuring the rebirth of the pharaohs buried behind it. The fusion of human and leonine features suggests a specific religious function. In ancient Egyptian theology, the lion was associated with the sun god Ra, while the human face, likely that of Khafra himself, represented the divine pharaoh. This composite being might have served as an earthly manifestation of the pharaoh's power, extending his protection over the necropolis even after death. Some researchers interpret the Sphinx as Horemakhet, Horus of the horizon, a form of the sun god particularly venerated during the New Kingdom. A stela erected between the Sphinx's paws by Pharaoh Thutmose IV in 1401 BCE tells of a dream in which the Sphinx, identifying itself as Horemakhet, promised him the throne in exchange for clearing away the sand that had buried it. But this identification came 1,000 years after the Sphinx's creation. Was Thutmose IV remembering or reinterpreting? The Sphinx's position and orientation suggest purposes beyond mere guardianship. It faces due east with remarkable precision, aligned to watch the sun rise on the spring and autumn equinoxes. This celestial orientation indicates the monument may have served as an astronomical marker, perhaps related to ancient Egyptian calendar systems or religious festivals. More intriguing are theories connecting the Sphinx to the constellation Leo. Some researchers argue that around 10,500 BCE, during the astronomical age of Leo, the constellation would have risen directly in front of the Sphinx at the spring equinox. This theory, while controversial, raises questions about the monument's true age and whether it might have been modified or recarved from an even older structure. The Sphinx's position relative to the pyramids creates additional astronomical alignments. During certain times of the year, shadows cast by the pyramids intersect at the Sphinx, creating patterns that may have held religious or calendrical significance for the ancient Egyptians. In 1991, geologist Robert Schoch examined the Sphinx's erosion patterns and reached a startling conclusion. The weathering appeared to be caused not by wind and sand, but by prolonged exposure to rainfall. The vertical fissures and undulating surfaces suggested water erosion precipitation that hadn't occurred in the Giza region for thousands of years before the accepted date of the Sphinx's construction. Schoch's analysis suggested the Sphinx might be far older than conventional dating indicates, perhaps dating to 5000 BCE or earlier, when the region experienced a wetter climate. This theory implies the existence of an advanced pre-dynastic civilization capable of monumental architecture, a possibility that challenges our understanding of human history. Critics argue the erosion could result from other factors: salt crystallization, morning dew, or Nile floods. Yet the debate has opened discussions about what else might lie buried beneath Giza's sands, waiting to rewrite history. The possibility of chambers within or beneath the Sphinx has tantalized researchers for centuries. In 1798, Napoleon's expedition reported finding an opening in the Sphinx's back, though it was later sealed. Arab histories from the medieval period describe entering chambers within the monument, recovering treasures, and encountering inscriptions. Modern technology has revealed anomalies that keep these legends alive. Seismic surveys conducted in the 1990s detected several cavities beneath the Sphinx: a rectangular chamber beneath the front paws, a tunnel running along the body's length, and cavities near the rear of the monument. In 1996, researchers discovered a previously unknown tunnel in the Sphinx's rump, though Egyptian authorities halted exploration before its extent could be determined. Ground-penetrating radar has revealed additional anomalies, including what appears to be a chamber beneath the left paw. The Egyptian government has restricted invasive exploration, citing concerns about the monument's stability. This caution, while understandable, has fueled speculation about what might be hidden ancient texts, burial chambers, or evidence that could reshape our understanding of the Sphinx's purpose. The Sphinx's placement within Giza's sacred landscape offers clues to its purpose. It stands at a liminal point between the land of the living, the Nile Valley, and the land of the dead, the Western Desert. This positioning suggests it may have served as a spiritual guardian, controlling passage between worlds. Some researchers propose the Sphinx functioned as an initiation site for ancient mystery schools. Greek and Roman writers described secret chambers beneath the monument where priests conducted esoteric rituals. The dream stela of Thutmose IV hints at such practices, describing how the future pharaoh slept between the Sphinx's paws, seeking divine visions. The monument's acoustic properties support theories of ritual use. The Sphinx Temple, built from blocks quarried during the Sphinx's creation, contains alcoves that create specific sound resonances. Were these designed for chanting or other sonic rituals? The precise acoustic engineering suggests intentional design rather than coincidence. Perhaps most intriguing is what the Sphinx meant to later Egyptians. By the New Kingdom, sand had buried the monument to its neck. Successive pharaohs cleared and restored it, each adding their own interpretations and inscriptions. This pattern suggests the Sphinx's original purpose had been forgotten even in ancient times, replaced by evolving religious and political meanings. Medieval Arab historians called it Abu al-Hol, the father of terror, and recorded legends of hidden mechanical devices and magical guardians protecting subterranean treasures. These accounts, while fantastical, preserve cultural memories that might echo actual features or purposes lost to time. Current research employs increasingly sophisticated technology. Infrared thermography has revealed temperature anomalies suggesting hidden passages. Chemical analysis of surface treatments indicates multiple phases of modification throughout antiquity. Satellite imagery has detected previously unknown structures buried around the Sphinx. Japanese researchers using electromagnetic sounding claim to detect a tunnel extending from the Sphinx toward Khafra's pyramid. French teams identified cavities that might represent symbolic organs within the lion's body. Each discovery adds pieces to a puzzle that remains frustratingly incomplete. Recent excavations have uncovered evidence of a sophisticated drainage system around the Sphinx, suggesting its builders anticipated water exposure. This finding reignites debates about the monument's age and the climate conditions during its creation. If the Sphinx was designed to withstand rainfall, what does this tell us about when and why it was built? As dawn breaks over Giza, the Sphinx continues its eternal vigil, its weathered face catching the first rays of sunlight as it has for millennia. The monument stands as more than stone and silence. It represents the boundaries of our knowledge, the limits of our understanding about our own past. Was it a guardian deity protecting sacred ground, an astronomical marker encoding lost knowledge, a portrait of divine kingship asserting eternal power? Or does its true purpose lie in those detected but unexplored chambers, in inscriptions hidden beneath centuries of restoration, in meanings so alien to our modern minds that we cannot recognize them even when they stare us in the face? The Sphinx asks a question not in words but in stone, not just about what it is, but about who we were. And perhaps that is its ultimate purpose, not to provide answers, but to ensure we never stop asking questions. For in the space between the human and the animal, between the known and the unknown, between ancient wisdom and modern investigation, the Sphinx guards its greatest treasure, the mystery itself. In the end, we are left where we began, between the paws of an impossible creature, before a doorway that may or may not exist, seeking answers to questions we may not even know how to ask. The riddle of the Sphinx remains unsolved, not because we lack the intelligence to solve it, but because we may lack the context to understand what we're truly seeking. In the swirling sand of Egypt's Valley of the Kings, Archaeologists search for a ghost queen so powerful she was erased from history, so carefully hidden that 3,300 years of exploration have failed to find her final resting place. Nefertiti, the great royal wife of Pharaoh Akhenaten, was more than a beautiful face immortalized in limestone. She was a revolutionary who helped reshape an empire, a mother of 6 daughters, possibly a pharaoh in her own right, and then she vanished. Not just from life, but from death itself. While the tombs of lesser queens have been discovered and plundered, while the mummies of forgotten nobles fill museum collections, the body of one of ancient Egypt's most famous women remains missing, as if the desert itself conspired to keep her hidden. To understand why Nefertiti's body might have been deliberately concealed, we must first understand who she was and what she represented. Rising to prominence around 1370 BCE, Nefertiti married Amenhotep IV, who would later rename himself Akhenaten. Together, they launched a religious revolution that shook Egypt to its foundations. The royal couple abandoned the traditional pantheon of Egyptian gods, declaring Aten the sun disk as the sole deity. They moved the capital from Thebes to a new city, Akhetaten, modern Amarna, built on virgin soil untouched by other gods. In this revolutionary act, Nefertiti wasn't merely a supportive spouse. Temple reliefs show her performing rituals previously reserved for pharaohs, smiting enemies and driving her own chariot. Her name appears as frequently as her husband's in official inscriptions. Then, around year 12 of Akhenaten's 17-year reign, Nefertiti disappeared from historical records. No death announcement, no funeral inscriptions, no tomb preparations mentioned in administrative papyri. The queen who had been omnipresent in Egyptian art and politics simply ceased to exist. Egyptologists have proposed several theories for Nefertiti's sudden absence from records. Some suggest she fell from favor, perhaps opposing Akhenaten's increasingly radical religious reforms. Others propose she died during a plague that swept through Amarna around this time. Several royal daughters also disappeared from records during this period. A more intriguing theory suggests Nefertiti didn't disappear, but transformed. Some scholars argue she became co-regent under the name Ankeperure Neferuaten, ruling alongside Akhenaten. Inscriptions from this period show feminine grammatical forms with royal titles, suggesting a female pharaoh. If true, Nefertiti might have even ruled solo after Akhenaten's death, before the boy king Tutankhamun ascended the throne. This theory explains her absence from records. She wasn't gone, just renamed. But it makes the missing body even more puzzling. Female pharaohs, while rare, received elaborate burials. Hatshepsut's mummy was eventually found, despite attempts to erase her from history. Why not Nefertiti's? The logical place to search for Nefertiti begins at Amarna, the city she helped create. The royal tomb at Amarna, discovered in the 1880s, contained evidence of multiple burials. Chamber Gamma held the remains of a royal woman, but the mummy had been destroyed in antiquity. Inscriptions suggest this might have been Mekhetaten, Nefertiti's daughter, not the queen herself. More telling is what wasn't found. Typically, royal tombs contain years of accumulated burial goods, evidence of ongoing construction, and inscriptions detailing the tomb owner's preparations for the afterlife. The Amarna royal tomb shows signs of hasty abandonment. When Tutankhamun restored the old religion and moved the capital back to Thebes, the Amarna dead were apparently relocated, but to where? Archaeological evidence indicates a massive operation to empty Amarna's cemeteries. Tomb reliefs were chiseled away, names erased, and mummies removed. This systematic erasure particularly targeted Akhenaten and Nefertiti, the heretic rulers who had defied the gods. Their bodies would have been prizes for those seeking to utterly destroy their legacy, or carefully hidden by those still loyal to their memory. In 1898, Victor Loret discovered tomb KV35 in the Valley of the Kings. Inside, he found a cache of royal mummies, apparently moved there during the Third Intermediate Period to protect them from tomb robbers. Among them were 2 anonymous female mummies that have sparked decades of speculation. The mummy known as the Younger Lady has attracted particular attention. Genetic testing in 2010 revealed she was Tutankhamun's mother, making her either Nefertiti or one of Akhenaten's sisters. The mummy shows evidence of severe facial damage inflicted around the time of death. Some researchers interpret this as evidence of violence. Perhaps Nefertiti was murdered during the turbulent succession after Akhenaten's death. But doubts remain. The Younger Lady's age at death, estimated between 25 and 35, seems too young for Nefertiti, who had 6 daughters and ruled for over a decade. The artistic conventions of the Amarna period, which emphasized elongated features and altered body proportions, make comparing mummies to sculptures problematic. DNA evidence proves royal lineage but cannot confirm specific identity. In 2015, Egyptologist Nicholas Reeves published a theory that electrified the archaeological world. Studying high-resolution scans of Tutankhamun's tomb, he identified what appeared to be sealed doorways in the tomb's decorated walls. These ghostly outlines, invisible to the naked eye, suggested hidden chambers beyond the boy king's burial chamber. Reeves proposed a radical theory. Tutankhamun's famous tomb was originally built for Nefertiti. When the boy king died unexpectedly after just 9 years of rule, they reopened Nefertiti's tomb, sealed her chambers, and repurposed the outer rooms for Tutankhamun. This would explain the tomb's unusually small size for a pharaoh and its confused decorative scheme, where some wall paintings appear adapted from earlier compositions. Ground-penetrating radar scans have yielded conflicting results. Initial surveys suggested voids behind the walls, spaces that could be hidden chambers. Later scans disputed these findings. Infrared thermography revealed temperature anomalies in the tomb's northern and western walls, possibly indicating different construction phases or hidden spaces. Egyptian authorities, cautious about damaging the priceless tomb, have restricted invasive investigation. While the Tutankhamun connection captures headlines, other theories place Nefertiti elsewhere. Some researchers suggest tomb KV21, which contains 2 female mummies of approximately the right period. Others point to KV63, a tomb discovered in 2006 containing embalming materials but no mummies, possibly evidence of a reburial. The Western Valley, less explored than the main Valley of the Kings, offers another possibility. Tomb WV22, built for Amenhotep III, shows evidence of later modifications. Could Nefertiti have been interred with Akhenaten's father, maintaining family connections while hiding from those who would desecrate her remains? Recent radar surveys of the Valley of the Kings have identified several anomalies that could represent undiscovered tombs. Each void in the bedrock might conceal a burial, each sealed doorway a potential answer to the mystery. Understanding why Nefertiti's body remains missing requires considering the politics surrounding her death and burial. The Amarna period ended in religious counter-revolution. Tutankhamun, possibly Nefertiti's stepson or nephew, restored the old gods and abandoned Amarna. His successors, Ai and Horemheb, systematically erased evidence of the heretic pharaohs. In this climate, Nefertiti's body would have been vulnerable. As co-architect of the religious revolution, she was as guilty as Akhenaten in the eyes of the restored priesthood. Her mummy might have been destroyed to prevent her achieving immortality in the afterlife. Alternatively, loyal followers might have hidden her body, protecting it from desecration. Ancient Egyptian beliefs about the afterlife made bodily preservation essential. Destroying a mummy meant destroying the person's chance at eternal life. For Nefertiti, who had challenged the gods themselves, such destruction might have seemed fitting punishment to her enemies, and the greatest catastrophe to her supporters. Contemporary archaeological techniques offer new hope for finding Nefertiti. Satellite imaging can detect underground anomalies invisible from the surface. DNA analysis can confirm relationships between mummies, building family trees that might identify anonymous remains. Chemical analysis of mummification materials can link bodies to specific workshops or time periods. Yet technology also reveals the complexity of the search. Each mummy tested raises new questions about royal genealogies. Each tomb scanned shows modifications, reuse, and ancient repair work that complicate interpretation. The Valley of the Kings, honeycomb with over 60 known tombs and countless unexplored spaces, guards its secrets carefully. In November 2022, Egyptian authorities announced new investigations in the Valley of the Kings, employing ground-penetrating radar and other non-invasive techniques. The search focuses on areas near Tutankhamun's tomb, but includes broader surveys of unexplored sections. Each season brings new excavations, new theories, and renewed hope that Nefertiti's hiding place will finally be revealed. The missing body of Nefertiti represents more than a gap in the archaeological record. It embodies the power of ancient Egyptian politics to reach beyond death, the ability of historical figures to vanish so completely that their absence becomes more powerful than their presence. It challenges our confidence in modern technology to unlock ancient mysteries. Somewhere in Egypt, behind a painted wall in Tutankhamun's tomb, in an anonymous mummy already resting in a museum, in an undiscovered chamber still sealed by ancient priests' lies, the answer to a 3,300-year-old mystery. The beautiful queen who helped transform an empire, who stood as equal to a god-king, who dared to reshape heaven itself, remains hidden. Perhaps that is her final victory. In a culture obsessed with preserving identity for eternity, Nefertiti achieved a different kind of immortality, not through the preservation of her body, but through its absence. She remains forever the beautiful one who came and then vanished, leaving only questions carved as deeply as hieroglyphs in stone. In the waters off Alexandria's coast, where the Mediterranean conceals ancient palaces beneath its waves, archaeologists search for the final secret of Egypt's last pharaoh tomb that has eluded discovery for over 2 millennia. Cleopatra's seventh Philopator died on August 12, 30th BCE, ending not just a life but an entire epoch. With her death, the curtain fell on 3,000 years of pharaonic rule. Yet unlike her predecessors, whose mummies rest in museums and whose tombs have yielded their treasures to archaeology, Cleopatra vanished into history as completely as the dynasty she represented. The woman who spoke 9 languages, commanded navies, and captivated Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, left behind no body, no burial chamber, no monument marking her final rest. The Roman historian Plutarch, writing 130 years after her death, provides our most detailed account. He describes how Octavian, soon to become Emperor Augustus, allowed Cleopatra and Mark Antony to be buried together with royal honors. Their tomb, he notes, stood in Alexandria, presumably near the palace complex where Cleopatra had lived and ruled. Then silence. No ancient source describes visiting the tomb. No later historian records its location. The grave of Egypt's most famous queen simply disappeared. Understanding the mystery requires examining what we know of Cleopatra's final days. After the Battle of Actium in 31 BCE, where Octavian's forces defeated the combined fleet of Antony and Cleopatra, the lovers retreated to Alexandria. For nearly a year, they prepared for the inevitable Roman invasion, while also making arrangements for their deaths. Ancient sources describe Cleopatra testing various poisons on condemned prisoners, seeking a painless method of suicide. She eventually settled on the bite of an asp, though modern historians debate whether the snake story was Roman propaganda. More likely, she used a poisonous ointment or a hollow hairpin filled with toxin, methods that would leave No obvious marks. When Octavian's forces entered Alexandria in August 30th BCE, Mark Antony, believing falsely that Cleopatra had already died, fell on his sword. Mortally wounded, he was carried to Cleopatra's mausoleum, a structure she had been preparing for years, where he died in her arms. Cleopatra herself survived another 11 days, during which she negotiated with Octavian and made final arrangements. The key detail in these accounts is the mention of Cleopatra's mausoleum, described as a 2-story building where she had already moved her treasury. This wasn't a tomb in the traditional Egyptian sense, but a Hellenistic-style monument befitting a Ptolemaic queen. After her death, both bodies were apparently prepared according to Egyptian custom, though hurriedly, and interred together. What happened next remains one of archaeology's most perplexing mysteries. Alexandria, unlike the desert necropolises of earlier pharaohs, was a living city that continued to thrive under Roman rule. Cleopatra's tomb should have been a known landmark, perhaps even a tourist attraction for wealthy Romans. Yet within a generation, its location was apparently forgotten. Several factors might explain this disappearance. First, Octavian had compelling reasons to obscure the tomb's location. Cleopatra and Antony had become rallying symbols for resistance to Roman rule. Their tomb could have become a pilgrimage site for Egyptian nationalists or supporters of Antony's legacy. By allowing the burial but concealing its location, Octavian satisfied Egyptian religious customs while preventing the creation of a potential shrine to his enemies. Natural disasters also played a role. Alexandria suffered a devastating tsunami in 365 CE, following an earthquake off Crete. Much of the ancient city, including the palace quarter where Cleopatra lived, sank beneath the waves or was buried under sediment. The famous lighthouse of Alexandria, one of the 7 wonders, eventually collapsed. If Cleopatra's tomb stood near the palace complex, it too might lie beneath the Mediterranean. Modern efforts to find Cleopatra's tomb began with Napoleon's invasion of Egypt in 1798. French scholars mapped Alexandria's ruins and speculated about possible locations, but found no trace of the Queen's burial site. Throughout the 19th and early 20th centuries, archaeologists focused on more accessible sites, assuming Cleopatra's tomb was either destroyed or hopelessly buried beneath modern Alexandria. The search took a dramatic turn in the 1990s, when French marine archaeologist Franck Godiot began exploring Alexandria's submerged ruins. Using side-scan sonar and sub-bottom profilers, his team mapped the ancient palace quarter, now lying in Alexandria's eastern harbour. They discovered statues, sphinxes, and architectural elements from Cleopatra's world, but no tomb. These underwater excavations revealed the scale of Alexandria's subsidence. The palace complex where Cleopatra lived now lies 6 to 8 meters below sea level. If her tomb was built nearby, as ancient sources suggest, it would require sophisticated underwater archaeology to locate and excavate, assuming it survived the centuries of earthquakes and tsunamis. In 2005, Dominican archaeologist Dr. Kathleen Martinez proposed a revolutionary theory. She argued that Cleopatra, anticipating Octavian's desire to parade her through Rome, would have prepared a secret burial location away from Alexandria. Martinez focused on Taposiris Magna, a temple complex 45 kilometers west of Alexandria. The site's name means Tomb of Osiris, and it was an important religious center in Cleopatra's time. Martinez argued that Cleopatra, who portrayed herself as the reincarnation of Isis, would have chosen to be buried near Osiris, Isis's mythological husband. The parallel to Cleopatra and Antony, she as Isis, he as Osiris Dionysus, was too compelling to ignore. Excavations at Taposiris Magna have yielded intriguing results. The team discovered a series of tunnels and chambers beneath the temple, along with coins bearing Cleopatra's image and a cemetery containing nobles from her era. In 2022, they found a 1,305-meter tunnel described as a geometric miracle running beneath the temple complex. While no royal burial has been found, these discoveries suggest the site held special significance during Cleopatra's reign. Other scholars propose different locations. Some argue for sites within Alexandria itself, perhaps beneath modern buildings that prevent excavation. The Soma, the tomb of Alexander the Great that once stood in Alexandria, offers another possibility. Cleopatra claimed descent from Alexander's generals and might have chosen burial near the great conqueror, though Alexander's tomb itself remains lost. A minority theory suggests Cleopatra's body was returned to her ancestral homeland of Macedonia, though no evidence supports this claim. Others propose she was cremated, unusual for Egyptian royalty, but consistent with some Hellenistic practices, which would explain the absence of a mummy. Recent ground-penetrating radar surveys in Alexandria have identified several anomalies beneath the modern city that could represent ancient structures. However, the dense urban environment makes extensive excavation impossible. Each construction project in Alexandria requires archaeological supervision, and occasionally ancient artifacts emerge, but never the tomb archaeologists seek. Despite the absence of the tomb itself, archaeological evidence continues to emerge. In 2018, a red granite sarcophagus discovered in Alexandria sparked speculation it might be connected to Cleopatra, though it proved to date from an earlier period. Pottery shards, architectural fragments, and inscriptions from Cleopatra's era regularly surface, each adding small pieces to the larger puzzle. Marine archaeology has recovered statues believed to represent Cleopatra and ceremonial objects from her palace. These finds confirm the general location of the palace quarter, but haven't led to the tomb. The underwater environment presents unique challenges: poor visibility, strong currents, and the constant threat of damage to fragile artifacts. DNA analysis offers a potential breakthrough. If Cleopatra's remains are found, they could be compared to known Ptolemaic mummies to confirm her identity. However, this assumes her body was mummified in a way that preserved DNA, and that we can accurately identify other Ptolemaic family members for comparison. The lost tomb of Cleopatra represents more than an archaeological prize. Its discovery would provide invaluable insights into a crucial period of history when the ancient world transformed into the foundation of Western civilization. The tomb's artifacts could illuminate Ptolemaic burial practices, the syncretism of Egyptian and Greek cultures, and the personal life of history's most famous queen. Moreover, Cleopatra's burial alongside Mark Antony would offer a unique opportunity to study a Roman noble's adoption of Egyptian funerary customs. The combination of Roman and Egyptian burial practices could reveal how these two great civilizations influenced each other at the moment of their collision. The tomb might also contain written records. The Ptolemies were meticulous record keepers, and Cleopatra herself was highly educated. Papyri, inscriptions, or other texts could provide first-hand accounts of her reign, her relationships with Caesar and Antony, and the final days of Ptolemaic Egypt. Today, the search for Cleopatra's tomb employs cutting-edge technology. Satellite imagery can detect subtle changes in soil composition that might indicate buried structures. Marine robots explore underwater sites too dangerous for human divers. Chemical analysis of soil samples can identify areas of ancient human activity. Dr. Martinez continues her work at Taposiris Magna, convinced the tomb lies somewhere within the complex. Each season brings new tunnels to explore, new chambers to excavate. The Egyptian Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities supports multiple search efforts, recognizing the enormous cultural and economic value of such a discovery. Meanwhile, climate change adds urgency to the search. Rising sea levels threaten to submerge even more of ancient Alexandria. Coastal erosion eats away at archaeological sites. If Cleopatra's tomb lies near or beneath the waterline, time may be running out to find it. As the sun sets over Alexandria's harbour, painting the Mediterranean in shades of purple and gold. One can almost imagine Cleopatra's funeral procession winding through these streets. Somewhere beneath the waves, under the sand, behind a wall yet unbreached, the last pharaoh of Egypt waits with her Roman general. The search for Cleopatra's tomb has become a quest that transcends archaeology. It represents our desire to touch the past, to solve ancient riddles, to find tangible connections to figures who shaped our world. Each excavation season brings hope. Each empty chamber brings disappointment and renewed determination. Perhaps the tomb's concealment was Cleopatra's final victory over Octavian. He could claim her kingdom, parade her children through Rome, and rewrite history to suit his narrative. But he could not claim her body or desecrate her eternal rest. In death, as in life, Cleopatra remains beyond the grasp of those who would control her. The mystery endures not merely because we haven't found the tomb, but because its discovery would answer questions we've asked for 2,000 years, while inevitably raising new ones. And so the search continues, driven by technology and determination, guided by ancient texts and modern theory, seeking a queen who ruled the world and then vanished into it, leaving only golden memories and an empty throne where death and glory meet. In a storage room of the Cairo Museum, catalogued simply as Special Register Number 6347, sits a wooden artifact that challenges everything we thought we knew about ancient Egyptian understanding of aerodynamics. Discovered in 1898 during excavations at Saqqara, this small sycamore carving lay unnoticed among thousands of other artifacts for over 7 decades. Then, in 1969, Egyptian physician and amateur archaeologist Dr. Khalil Messiha noticed something peculiar about this bird. Unlike the hundreds of other bird figurines from ancient Egypt, this one possessed characteristics that seemed impossibly modern features that wouldn't be seen again in human design for another 2,000 years. The Saqqara bird, as it came to be known, measures just 14 centimeters in length with a wingspan of 18 centimeters. Carved from lightweight sycamore wood sometime around 200 BCE during Egypt's Ptolemaic period, it weighs a mere 39 grams, but its specifications read less like an ancient religious artifact and more like an engineer's model. The body is streamlined. The wings are straight and aerodynamically shaped. Most remarkably, instead of the horizontal tail feathers found on bird carvings throughout Egyptian art, this artifact possesses a vertical tail finner feature seen nowhere in nature but essential to aircraft design. The tomb where the Saqqara bird was discovered belonged to Padi Imen, an official who lived during the 3rd century BCE. This was a period of remarkable technological innovation in Egypt, when Greek scientific knowledge merged with ancient Egyptian craftsmanship under Ptolemaic rule. The tomb contained the typical array of burial goods pottery, tools, and religious artifacts, but the bird stood apart. Egyptian tombs often included model objects meant to serve the deceased in the afterlife. Model boats ensured river travel, model granaries provided food, and model servants performed labor. But what function would a bird serve? And why did this particular bird look so different from the thousands of other bird artifacts found throughout Egypt? Dr. Messia's investigation revealed more anomalies. The bird's proportions, when scaled up, match those of a modern pusher-propeller aircraft. The wing placement creates a high shoulder wing configuration that provides stability. The dihedral angle, the upward angle of the wings from the body, measures 12 degrees, optimal for flight stability. These are not features an artist would add for aesthetic purposes. They serve specific aerodynamic functions. The question that emerged was as simple as it was profound. Did ancient Egyptians understand principles of flight 2 millennia before the Wright brothers? The idea seems fantastical, yet ancient Egyptian texts contain intriguing references. The pyramid texts speak of the pharaoh flying up to heaven. While typically interpreted as spiritual metaphor, some researchers wonder if these passages preserve memories of actual flight attempts. Ancient Egyptian mathematics and engineering, demonstrated in their monumental architecture, certainly proved their capacity for complex calculations. Birds held special significance in Egyptian religion and observation of nature. The god Horus took the form of a falcon. The Bennu bird symbolized rebirth. Egyptian artists studied and depicted birds with remarkable accuracy, showing different species in precise anatomical detail. They understood bird behavior, migration patterns, and the mechanics of wing movement. Could this knowledge have extended to understanding the principles that allowed birds to fly? In 2006, aviation engineer Simon Sanderson created precise replicas of the Saqqara bird to test its flight capabilities. Using the exact dimensions and weight distributions of the original, his models demonstrated that with the addition of a horizontal stabilizer, which may have been lost from the original artifact, the design could achieve stable gliding flight. Wind tunnel tests revealed that the bird's shape generates lift effectively. The curved upper surface of the wings and flatter lower surface create the pressure differential necessary for flight. Computer modeling showed that at the correct angle of attack, the design produces a lift-to-drag ratio comparable to modern glider designs. However, critics point out significant issues. The lack of any horizontal stabilizer makes controlled flight nearly impossible. No ancient Egyptian text describes flying machines. No other artifacts suggest aviation technology. The engineering infrastructure necessary to develop flight-precise tools, testing facilities, and materials, science shows no evidence in the archaeological record. Conventional archaeology offers several explanations for the Saqqara bird's unusual features. The most widely accepted theory identifies it as a weather vane or wind direction indicator. The vertical tail fin would catch the wind effectively, causing the bird to point into the prevailing breeze. Such devices would have been valuable for agricultural planning, sailing, and architectural orientation. Another theory suggests the bird was a ceremonial object or toy. The mortise joint on the underside could have held a stick, allowing it to be mounted on a pole or carried in religious processions. Children's toys from ancient Egypt often featured moving parts or clever designs that demonstrated principles of balance and motion. Some scholars propose the bird represents a specific species with an unusual tail display during mating rituals. However, ornithologists have found no bird species matching this configuration. Others suggest artistic license or symbolic meaning, perhaps representing the soul's journey to the afterlife, with the vertical element symbolizing ascension. The Saqqara bird exists within a broader context of ancient artifacts that seem to display advanced knowledge. Colombian golden flyers resemble modern jets. Ancient Indian texts describe vimanas, flying vehicles of the gods. Chinese legends speak of flying chariots. While mainstream archaeology attributes these to imagination and mythology, their consistency across cultures raises questions. In Egypt specifically, other artifacts hint at advanced understanding. The Baghdad battery suggests knowledge of electrochemistry. The precision of pyramid construction implies sophisticated mathematics. The Antikythera mechanism from neighboring Greece demonstrates that ancient Mediterranean cultures could create complex mechanical devices. Could the Saqqara bird represent another example of lost ancient knowledge? Recent discoveries continue to push back the boundaries of ancient capabilities. The excavation of Göbekli Tepe showed that complex architecture predated agriculture. The discovery of ancient surgical instruments revealed medical knowledge we didn't think existed. Each finding forces us to reconsider what ancient civilizations knew and could achieve. In 2010, a team from the Ancient Aliens television series created a larger-scale model of the Saqqara bird, adding a horizontal stabilizer based on presumed missing pieces. Their remote-controlled model achieved sustained flight, sparking renewed debate. Critics argued that adding modern control surfaces invalidated the experiment. We cannot add parts that may never have existed and claim to prove ancient flight capability. More rigorous testing by aerospace engineers has yielded mixed results. The The basic design shows aerodynamic properties, but lacks crucial elements for controlled flight. The weight distribution creates nose-heavy tendencies. The vertical tail provides no pitch control. Without a horizontal stabilizer, the design would tumble uncontrollably. These findings suggest that while the creator understood some principles of streamlining, they likely didn't grasp the full complexity of aerodynamic flight. Perhaps the most overlooked aspect of the Saqqara bird is its religious symbolism. In Egyptian belief, the Bay-One aspect of the soul was depicted as a bird with a human head. The journey to the afterlife involved transformation and flight. The vertical element of the Saqqara bird might represent this spiritual ascension, rather than an aerodynamic feature. The Ptolemaic period, when the bird was created, saw increased Greek influence on Egyptian culture. Greek mythology included Icarus and mechanical marvels created by Daedalus. This cultural fusion might have inspired Egyptian craftsmen to create objects that bridged the mythological and mechanical, the spiritual and the scientific. Today, the Saqqara bird remains on display in the Cairo Museum, placed ironically in a special exhibit room alongside other artifacts that suggest ancient aviation knowledge. Visitors observe its streamlined form and wonder. Coincidence or knowledge? Religious symbol or technological model? The artifact itself remains silent, its sycamore form preserving questions rather than answers. Modern aviation engineers who examine the bird report an unsettling recognition. The proportions feel right, the design elements familiar, yet historians insist such knowledge couldn't have existed in ancient Egypt. This disconnect between what the artifact suggests and what history allows creates a cognitive dissonance that fuels continued speculation. Perhaps the truth lies somewhere between extremes. The Saqqara bird might represent not powered flight, but sophisticated understanding of gliding principles gained from careful observation of soaring birds. Ancient Egyptians, watching vultures ride thermals above the desert, might have intuited principles of lift without fully understanding their application to human flight. Or perhaps we underestimate ancient capabilities. Throughout history, knowledge has been lost and rediscovered. The recipe for Roman concrete was lost for centuries. Greek fire's composition remains unknown. Damascus steel cannot be replicated. Could the principles of flight have been among the casualties of history? As afternoon shadows lengthen in the Cairo Museum, the Saqqara bird casts its own shadow, a silhouette that looks remarkably like a modern aircraft. Whether this resemblance reflects ancient knowledge or modern projection remains unknown. The artifact continues its eternal flight, suspended not in air but in time, carrying questions that archaeology cannot yet answer. In that small wooden form lies a reminder that the past may have been more complex than we imagine, and that some mysteries, like birds, refuse to be caged by conventional explanation. Beneath the Hathor temple at Dendera, carved into the darkness of an underground crypt, stone reliefs depict objects that shouldn't exist. Elongated bulbs emitting serpentine filaments, supported by pillars and connected by cables to boxes that look disturbingly like modern electrical components. The temple complex at Dendera, located 60 kilometers north of Luxor, dates primarily to the Ptolemaic period, though it stands on foundations reaching back to Egypt's earliest dynasties. Built between 125 BCE and 60 CE, the temple dedicated to Hathor, goddess of love and joy, contains some of Egypt's best-preserved reliefs and astronomical ceilings. But in 1894, when French archaeologist Auguste Mariette first ventured into the temple's subterranean crypts, he discovered images that would challenge conventional understanding of ancient Egyptian knowledge. The reliefs in question occupy 3 stone panels in the crypts beneath the temple. Each shows similar scenes: large bulbous objects, translucent in appearance, containing undulating serpents. These bulbs rest on supporting pillars called jed columns, while braided lines resembling cables extend from them. Human figures hold these mysterious objects, while others kneel beside box-like structures from which the cables emerge. The precision of the carving and the technical nature of the depicted objects create an unsettling anachronism in this ancient sacred space. The most detailed relief shows a figure holding what appears to be an elongated glass bulb, roughly the length of a human torso. Inside, a serpent extends from one end to the other, its undulating form suggesting energy or movement. The bulb's base connects to a djed pillar, a symbol typically associated with stability and the backbone of Osiris. From this connection point, a cable-like line extends to a box on which sits a figure, possibly the god Thoth. What makes these images particularly intriguing is their specificity. Unlike the symbolic and often stylized nature of Egyptian art, these reliefs seem to depict actual objects with technical precision. The transparency of the bulbs is indicated by showing the serpent within. The cables show a braided or twisted structure. The supporting elements appear engineered rather than decorative. Traditional Egyptology interprets these images within established religious iconography. The bulb is identified as a lotus flower, symbol of creation and rebirth. The serpent represents the emergent universe, or the god Harsamtus. The djed pillar maintains its role as a stability symbol. The entire scene allegedly depicts the Egyptian creation myth, specifically the emergence of the primal serpent from the lotus at the dawn of creation. In 1982, Austrian authors Peter Krasser and Reinhard Habeck published a book proposing that the Dendera reliefs depicted ancient electrical lighting devices. Their theory, later elaborated by electrical engineer Walter Gahn, suggested the images showed functional light bulbs, or Crookes tubes, early electrical discharge devices. The comparison is striking. Modern electrical discharge tubes contain a partial vacuum through which electrical current passes, creating light. The serpent in the Dendera reliefs could represent this electrical discharge. The djed pillar resembles an insulator. The cables appear properly positioned to conduct electricity. The box attended by a figure might be a power source or control mechanism. Proponents of this theory point to practical considerations. The deepest chambers of Egyptian temples and tombs show no soot deposits on ceilings, yet they contain elaborate paintings requiring excellent lighting to create. Traditional explanations invoke polished metal mirrors to redirect sunlight, but experiments show this method becomes ineffective after just a few reflections. Oil lamps and torches would leave residue and consume oxygen in confined spaces. In 1996, electrical engineer Walter Gahn constructed a working model based on the Dendera relief specifications. His device, using a glass bulb partially evacuated and filled with argon gas, produced light when electrical current was applied. The serpentine discharge pattern resembled the relief carvings. This experiment proved that the depicted configuration could function as a lighting device, but not that ancient Egyptians possessed such technology. Critics point out fundamental problems with the electrical interpretation. No archaeological evidence exists for the infrastructure required to generate electricity in ancient Egypt. No power plants, no electrical grid, no wires beyond these cryptic reliefs. The cables in the reliefs don't connect to anything resembling a realistic power distribution system. Most tellingly, no ancient Egyptian text describes electrical phenomena or lighting technology. Furthermore, the reliefs contain hieroglyphic inscriptions that clearly describe religious ceremonies, not technical manuals. The texts speak of festivals, divine births, and mythological events, standard temple dedication language, with no mention of artificial lighting or electrical devices. The Dendera temple complex, while containing these mysterious reliefs, fits firmly within Ptolemaic period religious architecture. The Greeks who ruled Egypt during this era were sophisticated engineers who created mechanical marvels like the Antikythera mechanism, yet even they left no evidence of electrical knowledge. The crypts containing the light reliefs served specific religious functions. These underground chambers stored cult objects and sacred items used in temple rituals. Access was severely restricted. Only high priests entered these spaces. The placement of the controversial reliefs in such hidden sacred locations suggests religious rather than practical significance. Interestingly, similar serpent in lotus motifs appear in other Egyptian temples, though none match Dendera's technical specificity. At Edfu and Kom Ombo, creation scenes show serpents emerging from flowers, but in clearly symbolic representations. Only at Dendera do these symbols take on their peculiar device-like appearance. The absence of soot in decorated tomb chambers remains genuinely puzzling. Recent studies in the tomb of Rameses VII found no carbon deposits, despite extensive decoration requiring hundreds of hours to complete. Some researchers propose that ancient Egyptians used oil lamps with salt to create smokeless flames, a technique documented in ancient texts. Others suggest temporary wooden scaffolding directed smoke away from painted surfaces. However, experiments with these methods in confined spaces similar to tomb chambers show limitations. Smokeless lamps still consume oxygen, making extended work periods difficult. Mirror systems lose effectiveness rapidly in the angular passages of Egyptian tombs. The lighting question remains partially unresolved, though it doesn't necessarily support electrical alternatives. Perhaps the most intriguing aspect of the Dendera reliefs is what they reveal about Egyptian conceptual thinking. Whether depicting mythology or technology, the images show sophisticated understanding of contained energy, transmission systems, and supporting structures. This conceptual framework, even if purely symbolic, demonstrates abstract thinking about power and illumination. Some researchers propose a middle ground. The reliefs might represent spiritual technology devices that existed in the realm of divine knowledge rather than physical reality. Egyptian texts often describe gods possessing miraculous tools and abilities. The Dendera lights might depict divine illumination in terms that made sense to ancient technical minds, much as modern people might visualize spiritual concepts through computer metaphors. Discussions of ancient electricity often invoke the Baghdad battery, a clay jar containing copper and iron elements discovered in Iraq, dating to roughly 250 BCE. When filled with acidic liquid, such devices can generate small electrical currents. While most scholars believe these were used for electroplating rather than lighting, their existence proves ancient Middle Eastern cultures experimented with electrical phenomena. Could knowledge of basic electrical principles have reached Egypt? Trade routes certainly connected Mesopotamia and Egypt during the Ptolemaic period. However, the current generated by such primitive batteries falls far short of that needed for lighting. The connection remains speculative at best. Recent technological analysis of the Dendera reliefs using photogrammetry and spectral imaging has revealed previously unnoticed details. Tool marks indicate the reliefs were carved using standard Egyptian techniques. No evidence of unusual technology appears in their creation. The stone shows typical weathering patterns consistent with the temple's age. Chemical analysis of the depicted cables areas shows no differentiation from surrounding stone. If these represented actual metal conductors, we might expect different mineral deposits or staining. The bulbs show carving techniques identical to confirmed lotus flowers in other parts of the temple. From a purely archaeological perspective, the reliefs appear to be standard Ptolemaic religious art. Yet questions remain. Why do these particular reliefs generate such technological interpretations when thousands of other Egyptian religious scenes do not? What combination of artistic choices created such a compelling illusion of electrical devices? And how did ancient artists, working by whatever lighting method they employed, achieve such precision in the darkness of underground crypts? The Dendera lights occupy a unique position in archaeological mystery. Unlike clearly fantastic claims, they present images that genuinely resemble modern technology. Unlike vague similarities, the correspondence is specific and technical. Unlike isolated anomalies, they exist within a broader context of ancient Egyptian achievement that continually surprises us. As LED lights now illuminate the Dendera crypts for tourists, The ancient reliefs remain visible on the wall's stone, memories of something that might be mythology, might be misunderstood symbolism, or might be a glimpse of knowledge that flickered briefly in the ancient world before being extinguished by time. The serpents continue their eternal dance within their bulbous containers, frozen in stone, generating not light, but questions that archaeology has yet to fully answer. In the darkness of the crypt, illuminated now by undeniably electrical means, the ancient images pose their silent challenge. What did our ancestors know, and when did they know it? On a stone lintel in the ancient temple of Seti I at Abydos, hieroglyphs frozen in limestone for 3,000 years appear to depict machines that wouldn't exist for another 3 millennia. A helicopter, a submarine, a spacecraft, and vehicles that defy classification in the ancient world. The temple at Abydos, one of Egypt's most sacred sites, stands 11 kilometers west of the Nile in Upper Egypt. Built by Pharaoh Seti I around 1280 BCE and completed by his son Ramesses II, this limestone monument was dedicated to Osiris and served as a critical pilgrimage destination where pharaohs legitimized their rule. Within its darkened halls, among thousands of conventional hieroglyphs praising gods and recording offerings, sits panel 41 in the second hypostyle hall, a section of carved stone that has ignited fierce debate among archaeologists, engineers, and ancient history enthusiasts since its photographic documentation in the early 1990s. The controversial glyphs occupy a section of the lintel approximately 3 meters above the floor. To the casual observer, the shapes are unmistakable. A modern attack helicopter complete with rotor blades and tail section, what appears to be a submarine or tank with a clearly defined turret, an aircraft resembling a plane or spacecraft, and another vehicle that some interpret as a hovercraft or flying saucer. These aren't vague resemblances requiring imagination. The shapes are distinct enough that multiple observers independently identify the same modern vehicles. While the temple has been known to archaeologists since the 19th century, the specific glyphs that would cause such controversy went largely unnoticed for decades. The height of their placement and the accumulation of centuries of soot from oil lamps had obscured them from casual observation. It wasn't until cleaning efforts in the 1990s, combined with improved photographic technology, that clear images emerged and circulated beyond academic circles. The first widely distributed photographs appeared in 1997, triggering immediate speculation. How could ancient Egyptians have carved accurate representations of modern vehicles? The images spread rapidly through early internet forums, accompanied by theories ranging from time travel to alien intervention. Yet serious archaeological investigation would reveal a more complex story, though perhaps no less mysterious in its implications. Mainstream Egyptology offers a specific explanation for these anomalous hieroglyphs. They are the result of palimpsest, or overlapping inscriptions from different time periods. The investigation reveals that this section of the temple bears 2 separate inscriptions, one carved during the reign of Seti I, and another added by his son and successor, Ramesses II. The original inscription by Seti I read, "He who repulses the 9 enemies of Egypt." When Ramesses II ascended to the throne, he ordered his own inscription carved over his father's, "He who protects Egypt and overthrows foreign countries." The process involved filling the original carved hieroglyphs with plaster and recarving the new message. Over 3 millennia, this plaster has fallen away in places, creating a composite image where portions of both inscriptions are visible simultaneously. Detailed analysis supports this explanation. The helicopter shape results from the partial overlay of hieroglyphs for bread and basket. The submarine emerges from combinations of arm and quail chick symbols. Each anomalous shape can be deconstructed into overlapping standard hieroglyphs from the 2 different inscriptions. In 2011, a team of epigraphers conducted detailed photogrammetric analysis of the panel. Using raking light photography and digital enhancement, they mapped every chisel mark and surface variation. Their findings confirmed the presence of two distinct carving phases, with clear evidence of plaster residue in the transitional areas. The analysis revealed tool marks consistent with standard Egyptian carving techniques from both the 19th and 20th dynasties. No anomalous manufacturing methods were detected. The depth variations between the two inscription layers measured 2 to 4 millimeters, typical for Egyptian recarving practices. Yet this technical explanation doesn't fully satisfy all observers. Critics note that while individual elements can be explained as overlapping hieroglyphs, the coincidence of multiple vehicle-like shapes appearing in the same small area strains probability. Why would this particular combination of overlays create such specifically technological images? Understanding the Abydos anomaly requires examining the temple's unique position in Egyptian history. Abydos was believed to be the burial place of Osiris himself, making it Egypt's most important religious pilgrimage site. The Temple of Seti. I was constructed as part of a broader religious revival, attempting to restore traditional worship after the upheaval of Akhenaten's monotheistic revolution. Seti, I was particularly concerned with legitimizing his dynasty's rule. His temple at Abydos contains the famous King Lister chronological list of Egypt's rulers that conspicuously omits certain pharaohs deemed illegitimate. This political editing of history demonstrates that the temple was a place where past and present were deliberately manipulated for ideological purposes. The specific location of the anomalous hieroglyphs, in a passageway used by priests rather than a public area, suggests they weren't intended for general viewing. This placement has led some researchers to propose that even if created accidentally, the images might have been preserved deliberately once their unusual appearance was noticed. Beyond the mainstream palimpsest explanation, several alternative theories attempt to explain the Abydos glyphs. Some researchers propose that ancient Egyptians possessed advanced technology, either developed independently or received from an outside source. They point to other Egyptian mysteries: the precision of pyramid construction, the Baghdad Battery, the Dendera lights, as supporting evidence for lost ancient knowledge. Others suggest the images represent visions or prophecies. Egyptian priests were known to use hallucinogenic substances in certain rituals. Could the helicopter hieroglyphs record technological visions experienced in altered states of consciousness? This theory attempts to bridge the gap between accepting the images as intentional while rejecting ancient possession of actual technology. A more radical interpretation proposes temporal anomalies. If time isn't strictly linear, a possibility suggested by some interpretations of quantum physics, could ancient sculptors have somehow glimpsed future technology? While scientifically unsupported, this theory addresses the specific accuracy of the depicted vehicles. The Abydos hieroglyphs don't exist in isolation. Throughout Egypt and other ancient sites, researchers have identified carvings and artifacts that seem to depict advanced technology. At the Temple of Hathor at Dendera, the famous light bulb reliefs show another apparent technological anachronism. Colombian gold artifacts resembling aircraft, Chinese sculptures appearing to show astronauts, and Sanskrit texts describing flying vehicles all contribute to a pattern that some find difficult to dismiss as coincidence. However, archaeologists note that humans excel at pattern recognition, sometimes seeing patterns where none exist. The psychological phenomenon of pareidolia causes us to recognize familiar shapes in random configurations. Combined with our modern, technological frame of reference, ancient artistic conventions might naturally create images we interpret as machines. Perhaps the most intriguing aspect of the Abydos glyphs is the question of ancient interpretation. If we accept the palimpsest explanation, when did the composite images first become visible? Plaster deterioration isn't instantaneous. At some point, ancient observers would have seen the emerging shapes. How did they interpret these accidental formations? Egyptian culture was deeply invested in signs and omens. Unusual formations in sacred spaces would have been scrutinized for meaning. Did ancient priests see the same vehicles we see today, interpreting them within their own cosmological framework? Or did they see entirely different images that our modern minds can no longer recognize? The specific vehicles seemingly depicted at Abydos helicopter, submarine, aircraft represent humanity's conquest of air and water, environments where humans cannot naturally survive. This coincidence has led some researchers to explore whether the images might represent conceptual rather than literal vehicles. Egyptian mythology includes numerous references to divine boats that sail through the sky and the underworld. Gods were believed to possess vehicles that moved freely between realms. Could the Abydos glyphs represent a conceptual evolution of these mythological vehicles, accidentally manifested through the palimpsest process, in forms our technological age recognizes? Contemporary study of the Abydos glyphs faces several obstacles. The Egyptian government restricts invasive testing that might damage the temple. The height of the glyphs makes detailed examination difficult. Most significantly, the widespread internet dissemination of enhanced and sometimes manipulated images has created confusion about what the glyphs actually show versus what people claim they show. Recent efforts have focused on non-invasive analysis. Multispectral imaging reveals details invisible to the naked eye. 3D laser scanning creates precise models allowing virtual examination. These technologies confirm the palimpsest explanation while revealing subtleties in how the overlapping occurred. Despite technical explanations, the Abydos helicopter hieroglyphs continue to captivate public imagination. They represent a perfect archaeological mystery, clear enough to be intriguing, ambiguous enough to support multiple interpretations, and positioned at the intersection of ancient achievement and modern speculation. The glyphs force us to confront uncomfortable questions about coincidence and meaning. If random overlapping of ancient inscriptions can accidentally create accurate depictions of modern technology, what does this say about the nature of symbolism and interpretation? Are we discovering meaning or creating it? As sunlight filters through the temple's stone columns, illuminating dust motes that dance like time itself made visible, the controversial glyphs remain on their limestone canvas. They are simultaneously explained and unexplained, accident and intention, ancient and modern. Whether created by the chances of overlapping inscriptions or something more mysterious, they serve as a reminder that the past continues to speak to us in languages we only partially understand. The helicopter turns its stone rotors eternally, going nowhere and everywhere at once. The submarine navigates through solid limestone, exploring depths of meaning rather than water. The aircraft soars motionless through 3,000 years of human imagination, and in their impossible presence, carved by ancient hands for ancient purposes, they ask the question that echoes through every temple corridor and every archaeological dig. What else have we missed, and what else have we misunderstood in our reading of the past's stone pages? At the apex of humanity's greatest architectural achievement, where 2.3 million stone blocks converge with mathematical precision, there is nothing only a flat platform 30 feet square where the most sacred element of the Great Pyramid once stood. The Great Pyramid of Giza, built around 2560 BCE for Pharaoh Khufu, rises to a current height of 138.5 meters. But this isn't its intended height. Historical accounts and architectural analysis confirm the pyramid originally reached 146.6 meters, crowned by what the ancient Egyptians called a pyramidion, or Ben stone, a capstone that would have gleamed in the desert sun, visible for miles across the Giza plateau. Today, visitors who complete the arduous climb to the pyramid's summit find only rough core stones forming an unfinished platform, weathered by 4,500 years of exposure. This absence represents more than missing masonry. In ancient Egyptian cosmology, the Pyramidion embodied the Ben-Ben, the primordial mound that first emerged from the waters of chaos at creation. It was the point where earth met sky, where the pharaoh's soul would begin its journey to join Ra, the sun god, in his eternal voyage across the heavens. Without it, the Great Pyramid stands symbolically incomplete, a ladder to heaven missing its final crucial rung. The platform atop the Great Pyramid tells its own story. The core stones at the summit show clear signs of preparation for a capstone. The surfaces are leveled with greater precision than would be necessary if this had always been the pyramid's intended termination. Tool marks indicate careful working of the stone to create a stable base. Most tellingly, the dimensions of this platform, approximately 9 by 9 meters, perfectly accommodate the base of a pyramidion, scaled to the pyramid's original proportions. Mathematical analysis reveals another layer of evidence. The Great Pyramid's geometry is based on precise ratios, with its slope angle of 51.5 degrees creating the famous golden ratio relationships. This geometry only resolves perfectly with the addition of a capstone. Without it, the pyramid's mathematical elegance remains incomplete, like a symphony missing its final note. Other pyramids provide comparative evidence. The Red Pyramid at Dahshur retains its pyramidion, now displayed at ground level. Made of black basalt, it stands 1.6 meters tall with inscriptions praising the pharaoh. The Pyramid of Amenemhat III at Hawara possessed a black granite capstone weighing several tons. These surviving examples confirm that pyramidions were standard features of pyramid construction, making the Great Pyramid's missing capstone even more conspicuous. Ancient sources tantalize with scattered references to the Great Pyramid's original appearance. The Greek historian Diodorus Siculus, writing in the 1st century BCE, described the pyramid as complete and without the least decay. This suggests the capstone may have still been present 2,500 years after construction. Pliny the Elder mentioned that the pyramid's summit was a platform, indicating the capstone had vanished by the 1st century CE. Arabic historians provide the most intriguing accounts. Abd al-Latif al-Baghdadi, visiting in 1200 CE, reported local traditions claiming the pyramid once possessed a capstone made of precious metal that shone like a star. Earlier, in 820 CE, Caliph al-Mamun's expedition to breach the pyramid reportedly found hieroglyphic inscriptions suggesting something significant had been removed from the apex. The absence appears in Egyptian records through omission. While detailed accounts exist of pyramid construction logistics work gangs, stone transportation, architectural planning, no surviving papyrus describes the creation or installation of Khufu's pyramidion. This silence is particularly striking, given the religious significance such an object would have held. What material formed this missing capstone? Surviving pyramidions from other pyramids provide some guidance. Basalt, granite, and limestone examples exist. But persistent traditions suggest Khufu's capstone was extraordinary. The most common theory proposes it was made of electrum, a naturally occurring alloy of gold and silver prized by ancient Egyptians for its sun-like appearance. An electrum capstone would have created a spectacular visual effect. At dawn, as the first rays of sunlight struck the pyramid's apex, the metallic surface would have blazed with reflected light, creating a beacon visible throughout the Memphite necropolis. This dramatic display would have reinforced the pyramid's role as a machine for the pharaoh's solar transformation. Alternative theories suggest polished limestone with gold leaf covering, pure gold, though the weight would be problematic, or even more exotic materials. Some researchers propose the capstone contained inscriptions or astronomical markers, making it not just a crowning ornament, but a functional element encoding important information. Multiple scenarios could explain the capstone's absence. The most straightforward involves earthquake damage. The Cairo region has experienced several significant seismic events over millennia. A pyramidion, perched at the pyramid's apex and potentially made of different material than the core structure, would be vulnerable to earthquake displacement. Theft presents another possibility. If the capstone contained precious metals, it would have been an irresistible target. However, removing a multi-ton object from a 450-foot height presents formidable challenges. Unless the capstone was hollow or made of smaller assembled pieces, its theft would have required sophisticated engineering. Some theories propose deliberate removal by ancient Egyptians themselves. During periods of economic crisis, precious materials from monuments were sometimes recycled. The intermediate periods saw widespread tomb, robbing and monument dismantling. A golden capstone would have represented enormous wealth in troubled times. More speculative theories deserve examination, if only to understand the mystery's full scope. Some researchers propose the capstone was never installed, suggesting Khufu's death interrupted construction. However, the pyramid's otherwise complete state and the careful preparation of the summit platform argue against this. Others suggest the capstone possessed properties or significance that necessitated its removal and hiding. Arab legends speak of the pyramidion containing magical objects or texts, the accumulated wisdom of the pre-flood world. While archaeological evidence doesn't support such claims, these traditions might preserve memories of the capstone's exceptional nature. A few researchers propose the capstone wasn't a separate element, but an integral part of the pyramid, transformed by unknown means. This theory attempts to explain both the prepared platform and the absence of debris that a fallen capstone should have left. However, it lacks supporting evidence beyond the mystery it attempts to solve. Contemporary technology has revealed new aspects of the mystery. In 1986, French architects Gilles Dormion and Jean-Patrice Guédin used microgravimetry to detect density variations within the pyramid. Their measurements suggested possible voids near the apex, leading to speculation about hidden chambers that might contain the disassembled capstone. In 2017, the Scam Pyramids project used cosmic ray imaging to discover a large void above the Grand Gallery. While this space lies too low to be directly connected to the capstone, it demonstrates that the pyramid still harbors significant secrets. Could other voids near the apex contain clues to the pyramidion's fate? Ground-penetrating radar surveys of the Giza Plateau have failed to locate any buried capstone-sized objects. However, the depth limitations of current technology and the extensive limestone bedrock make comprehensive scanning impossible. The capstone could lie buried beneath meters of sand and debris, awaiting discovery. The missing capstone transforms the Great Pyramid's meaning. In Egyptian theology, incompleteness implied imperfection, potentially affecting the pharaoh's afterlife journey. Did ancient priests perform rituals to compensate for the missing element? Did they create symbolic replacements we haven't recognized? The absence also affects our understanding of ancient Egyptian capabilities. If the capstone was indeed covered or made of precious metal, its creation and installation would represent additional evidence of sophisticated ancient engineering. The logistics of hoisting a golden capstone to such height would require techniques we can only speculate about. Some researchers note that the missing capstone creates a unique astronomical platform. The flat summit provides an ideal observation point, leading to theories that the pyramid's top served as an ancient observatory after the capstone's removal. Star shafts within the pyramid align with celestial objects. Perhaps the summit platform played a complementary role. Recent developments have renewed interest in finding the missing capstone. In 2020, archaeologists discovered workshop areas near the pyramid containing evidence of metalworking, including gold processing. Could these facilities have created or maintained the pyramidion? Satellite archaeology has identified previously unknown structures buried around the Giza complex. Each excavation potentially brings us closer to solving the capstone mystery. Meanwhile, advances in materials analysis allow researchers to identify the origin of metals and stones with increasing precision. If capstone fragments exist in museums or private collections, misidentified as common artifacts, new techniques might reveal their true nature. The Egyptian Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities has approved new, non-invasive studies of the pyramid's summit, hoping to find evidence of how the capstone was attached. Microscopic analysis of the platform stones might reveal traces of metals or binding materials, providing clues to the pyramidions' composition and fate. As the sun sets over Giza, casting the pyramid's truncated shadow across the plateau, the missing capstone poses questions that transcend archaeology. Its absence speaks to the fragility of even the greatest human achievements, the selective preservation of history, and the mysteries that time creates as surely as it reveals. Perhaps somewhere beneath the sand, in a collapsed chamber or forgotten cache, the capstone waits. Perhaps it was melted down millennia ago, its gold financing wars or temples, its sacred form transformed into coins bearing the faces of forgotten kings. Or perhaps it was destroyed so thoroughly that not even dust remains, erased by those who saw it as a symbol of obsolete beliefs. The Great Pyramid stands eternal yet incomplete, perfect in its imperfection. At its apex, where stone should meet sky, questions accumulate like the sand that drifts across the plateau. The missing capstone has become more powerful in absence than it might have been in presence. A perfect mystery crowning humanity's most ambitious monument. And in that empty space, 450 feet above the desert floor, where the physical and metaphysical were meant to unite, the pyramid keeps its final secret, waiting for someone to complete a puzzle 4,500 years in the making. In the humid darkness of a Florida night in 1940, neighbors reported seeing strange lights hovering above a modest property and homestead, where a solitary man moved multi-ton blocks of coral stone using methods that remain unexplained to this day. Edward Leedskalnin stood just over 5 feet tall and weighed barely 100 pounds. Yet between 1923 and 1951, this Latvian immigrant single-handedly quarried, transported, and precisely placed over 1,100 tons of coral rock to create what would become known as Coral Castle. His creation includes stones weighing up to 30 tons, a perfectly balanced 9-ton revolving gate, and astronomical alignments that rival ancient monuments. When asked how he accomplished this seemingly impossible feat, Leedskalnin would only say he had discovered the secrets of the pyramids and understood the laws of weight and leverage used by the ancient builders. Today, Coral Castle stands as one of the most enigmatic structures in North America. Engineers and physicists who have studied the site struggle to explain how one frail man could have accomplished what typically requires heavy machinery and crews of workers. The mystery deepens when examining Leedskalnin's repeated claims that his methods connected directly to those used by ancient civilizations, particularly the builders of the Egyptian pyramids. Edward Leedskalnin was born in Riga, Latvia, in 1887. His formal education ended at 4th grade, yet he demonstrated an unusual aptitude for mathematics, astronomy, and engineering. At age 26, he was allegedly jilted by his 16-year-old fiancée, Agnes Scuffs, the night before their wedding. This heartbreak reportedly drove him to immigrate to America, where he worked in lumber camps and developed tuberculosis. Seeking a warmer climate for his health, Leedskalnin arrived in Florida in 1918. By 1923, he had purchased an acre of land in Florida City and begun his life's work. Working alone at night, away from curious eyes, he started quarrying massive blocks of oolitic limestone, commonly called coral rock, from his property. What makes Leedskalnin particularly intriguing is his extensive writings on magnetism and his theories about the universe. His pamphlets, including Magnetic Current and Mineral, Vegetable and Animal Life, reveal an unconventional understanding of physics and forces. He claimed that all matter consisted of individual magnets and that he had discovered how to manipulate these magnetic forces. Knowledge he insisted the ancient pyramid builders also possessed. The physical evidence at Coral Castle defies conventional explanation. The largest stone on the property, weighing an estimated 30 tons, was somehow quarried, moved, and erected by a man who refused all offers of assistance. Neighbors reported that Leedskalnin worked primarily at night, using a system of pulleys, chains, and tripods of his own design. When people approached, he would stop working, claiming that the presence of observers would disrupt his process. In 1936, when a subdivision threatened his privacy, Leedskalnin made an extraordinary decision. He would move his entire castle 10 miles north to Homestead. He hired a truck driver but insisted on loading and unloading the massive stones himself. The driver reported that Leedskalnin would direct him to leave, and upon returning, would find the multi-ton blocks somehow loaded onto the truck. The process repeated in reverse at the new location. The precision of Leedskalnin's work rivals that of ancient monuments. His Polaris telescope, carved from a single block of coral rock, aligns perfectly with the North Star. A sundial on the property tells time accurately to within 2 minutes year-round. The 9-ton gate, perfectly balanced on its center of gravity, could be pushed open with the pressure of a single finger until it finally required repairs in 1986. Leedskalnin's frequent references to ancient construction techniques weren't casual observations. He specifically claimed to have rediscovered the same knowledge used to build the pyramids. This assertion becomes more intriguing when comparing construction details between Coral Castle and ancient sites. The precision fitting of stones at Coral Castle mirrors techniques seen in Peru's Sacsayhuaman Fortress and Egypt's Great Pyramid. Leedskalnin achieved joints so tight that no mortar was needed, with some fitting so precisely that a knife blade cannot be inserted between them. This level of precision, achieved without modern tools, echoes the craftsmanship of ancient builders. Furthermore, Leedskalnin incorporated astronomical alignments, similar to those found in ancient structures. His castle includes representations of celestial objects, Saturn, Mars, and a crescent moon carved from single blocks of stone. The entire complex appears oriented to celestial events, much like Stonehenge or the pyramids of Giza. Central to understanding Leedskalnin's claims is his theory of magnetic current. He believed that magnetic force flows in currents, like electricity, and that understanding these currents allows manipulation of matter. His writings describe experiments with magnets and his perpetual motion holder, a device he claimed could store magnetic current indefinitely. Modern physicists dismiss many of Leedskalnin's theories as pseudoscience, yet some aspects align surprisingly with contemporary understanding of electromagnetic fields. His description of the dual nature of magnetic currents, north and south pole individual magnets, predates similar concepts in particle physics. Could his unconventional understanding have led to practical applications unknown to mainstream science? Leedskalnin left behind curious devices at Coral Castle. His generator consists of massive magnets arranged in a specific configuration. While it doesn't produce electricity in any conventional sense, some researchers suggest it might interact with Earth's magnetic field in ways we don't fully understand. These devices, combined with his writings, suggest he was working with principles outside conventional physics. The few witnesses to Leedskalnin's methods reported puzzling observations. Some children claimed to have seen him floating stones through the air like hydrogen balloons. While such accounts might be dismissed as imagination, multiple independent witnesses described similar phenomena. One teenager reported watching Leedskalnin work from hiding. He described the builder placing his hands on a massive stone and singing to it. The stone then reportedly became lighter, allowing Leedskalnin to move it with minimal effort. This account parallels legends from various cultures about acoustic levitation using sound frequencies to counteract gravity. Physical evidence at the site includes unusual tool marks on the stones. Some surfaces show evidence of being cut with incredible precision, yet no conventional tools capable of such cuts have been found. Leedskalnin's workshop contained basic implements, chains, pulleys, and handmade tools, but nothing explaining how he achieved the precision evident in his work. Contemporary engineers have attempted to explain Leedskalnin's methods through conventional means. Theories include block and tackle systems with mechanical advantage, wooden tripods and leverage techniques, water-based flotation methods, traditional quarrying and moving techniques. However, practical attempts to replicate his work using these methods have failed to achieve similar results, particularly given the constraints of working alone and at night. A 1986 documentary team attempted to move comparable stones using period-appropriate technology and multiple workers. They concluded that conventional methods couldn't explain Leedskalnin's achievements. More exotic theories have emerged from analysis of the site. Some researchers note that Coral Castle sits on a spot with unusual magnetic properties, possibly amplifying any electromagnetic effects Leedskalnin might have utilized. Others point to the specific geology of the Ulitic limestone, suggesting it might have properties that facilitate manipulation under certain conditions. Leedskalnin's insistence that he used the same methods as ancient builders raises profound questions. Archaeological evidence increasingly suggests that ancient civilizations possessed knowledge and capabilities we don't fully understand. From the precise astronomical alignments of pyramids to the massive stones of Baalbek, ancient builders achieved feats that challenge modern engineering. If Leedskalnin truly rediscovered ancient techniques, what were they? His writings hint at understanding natural forces in ways that differ from conventional physics. He spoke of cosmic forces and the importance of working in harmony with natural energies rather than against them. These concepts echo ancient texts describing the construction of monuments through divine or supernatural assistance. After Leedskalnin's death in 1951, investigators found his workshop contained minimal equipment, certainly nothing explaining his methods. His extensive notes on magnetism and cosmic forces provide theoretical frameworks but no practical instructions. It's as if he deliberately ensured his secrets would die with him. Modern Coral Castle operates as a museum, attracting engineers, physicists, and curious visitors seeking to understand its construction. Despite decades of study, no one has successfully replicated Leedskalnin's achievements using his constraints working alone, at night, with basic tools. The connection to ancient building techniques remains tantalizing but unproven. Like the pyramid builders, Leedskalnin left behind monumental structures that demonstrate capabilities exceeding conventional understanding of his resources. Whether this represents lost knowledge, undiscovered physics, or elaborate misdirection remains unknown. As twilight falls over Coral Castle, the massive stones cast shadows that seem to hold secrets. Somewhere in the intersection of magnetism, acoustics, and ancient wisdom, Edward Leedskalnin found methods that allowed him to build the impossible. His creation stands as a testament to human ingenuity and a challenge to our understanding of physics and history. The castle remains what its creator intended, a monument to lost love built with lost knowledge. And in the precise fitting of its massive stones, in the perfect balance of its rotating gate, in the astronomical precision of its alignments, questions accumulate like the coral sand of Florida. For in this garden of stone, carved by a man who claimed to know the secrets of the ancients, we find not answers, but an invitation to reconsider what we think we know about the possible and the impossible, the ancient and the modern, the known and the eternally mysterious.